What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday. Yeah, I was going to say Friday. How we doing, everybody? How we doing? What's up? So, we have an awesome murder for hire hearing that I got the whole thing for us. It's a big deal in Michigan. They've been calling it the 8 Mile Hutch murder. It's really good. It was in Judge Appel's court. I don't know if you guys follow her. I've had her on the show before. She's cut and dry, to the point, and she made some big decisions today. I got all of it. It's edited, ready to go. But as the regulars trickle in, what's up, Steve Hall, Toby, Monica, Laura, what up, Mark, Rebecca, Sean Wexler? Grab your memberships. The lurker is exposed tonight. He is out and about. He's always here. But now he's showing himself. Thank you, Mr. Wexler. Tommy, what up? Orlando, Sophie, grab your membership. Shaquille O'Meal, Madison, good to see you, darling. Lawrence, what's up? All right, Flying Monkey, what up? All right, here we go. Let's get a little Mike Page. This is from Lucy Goosey, our friend Miss Rose. She gave me a beautiful little explanation, and you know I love to read them, so let's read it. This is from Miss Rose. Not this one. Hold on. She sends me so many goodies. Let's see. Hold on. Let's see. Okay. This is a child support enforcement hearing. Parents everywhere prepared to laugh or be angry at this parent that she put in quotes. No need to explain this one. It speaks for himself. I will just say, I hope that Mike Page, the children, never see this video. This is a bad one. But the guy's just a jerk. Here we go. Let's have some fun. And then we get to our murder case. Here we go.
All right, we'll take up file 2022-58705, the matter of Stephanie Muntz and Brody Kemp. Both are here via Zoom, and Mr. Wolver's here from the prosecutor's office. This is the date and time set for proceedings regarding paternity and support. Mr. Wolver, do you have an update?
Defendant was served 2/5 of 2023. This is a paternity case. We set up genetic testing for the parties by 99.99999%.
You think?
Mr. Kemp is found to be the father, so we need to deal with the order of affiliation. On the support issue, we imputed Miss Muntz. We have Mr. Kemp's actual wages. At this point, there are 0 overnights. When you put that in the child support formula, it comes out to 500 support, $23 ordinary medical, for a total of $523. There is a birth expense fee as well. The total number is $6,734.87. His father's portion would be $4,041.
Dueling memberships tonight. Thank you, Flying Monkey. Much appreciated.
All right. Swear both parties in. Both raise your right hands. Do you both swear or affirm any testimony you give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. And ma'am, you named Brody Donald Kemp as the father of Ellie Grace Muntz. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And sir, you had a DNA test, correct?
Yes.
All right. That DNA test was conclusive that that is your biological child. Do you agree?
Yes.
All right. And are you opposed to the entry of an order of affiliation, an order determining you to be the legal father of that child?
Could you repeat that, please?
So are you opposed to the entry of an order determining you to be the legal father of that child? There are certain ways to establish paternity in Michigan. That is to become a child's legal father. One is to be married to the mom during the time of conception or birth. Another is to sign an affidavit of parentage. That's a document that you could sign,
What's up,
or
Chris?
the birth certificate. The other is to have a court determine that you're the father of the child through a paternity order. So my question of Ms. Muntz was if she named you as the father of the child, and she said that she did. And my question of you was, is if you had the opportunity for a DNA test, which you did, which showed that it was conclusive that the child was your child biologically. So then I asked if you agreed to the entry of an order determining you to be the legal father of the child.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So I would direct the prosecutor's office then at this time to draft an order of affiliation, we
What's
call
up,
it.
Steph?
And that order of affiliation would determine Brody Donald Kemp to be the legal father of Ellie Grace Muntz. Now, that comes with rights. It also comes with responsibilities. Some of the rights are you have the right to have seek custody or parenting time or things like that with the child. And then responsibility includes potentially supporting the child. The recommendation based on the current situation would be that, sir, that you pay $523 a month. Do you agree with that recommendation?
I don't agree with paying that much, no.
Okay, why not?
Well, then how am I going to support myself?
So you're stating that that would cause a hardship in your home?
Yeah, that I wouldn't be able to pay my bills.
All right, where do you work?
Paulson Heating and Cooling,
How much do you make there?
$500 a month or a week.
Michael, you're an idiot.
So what's that as an hourly rate?
She actually looks like Black Widow. She's got a Scarlett Johansson thing going on. She does.
I think it is around $16.50 to $17 an hour.
What's up, Craig?
Is that what you use, Mr. Walker?
We got pay stubs, 538.45, 539.77, 539.77. So about, we grossed him at 28.71.
All right, so a little over 500 a week. All right. And then, sir, you don't have any overnights with the child at this time?
No, I do not.
Are you seeking parenting time at this point?
Not really, no.
Okay. Overnights are a big part of the support calculation, I guess. So are you not seeking parenting time now because the child's still young, or do you not plan to be a part of the child's life at any point?
Mainly because the child's still young.
What a douche.
Do you see the child at all, even if you don't have overnights?
No, I've not.
Oh. Thank you, Craig.
I've been trying to stay away from the situation.
Okay. Do you have any other income from any other source other than Halston Heating and Cooling?
No, I do not.
Any other income in your home at all?
Nope, just me by myself.
Okay. Ma'am, anything you want to say about the support recommendation? Ms. Munts?
Oh, I thought you were still talking to him. So sorry. Not really. I don't really have input right now.
Okay. All right, Mr. Walburn, are there other fees associated with this matter?
Yeah, there's a $150 filing fee, $59 birth record fee, and then $81 for the genetic testing.
All right.
Laura.
Um,
Thank you, Laura. You are a super fan. Your husband's right.
I guess effective, make it
Day
April
one,
1st,
baby.
2023. Support to be ordered in the amount of 500 per month, 23 ordinary medical, total of 523. I'll suspend enforcement on that for 90 days. So, sir, say what you can. The front of the court won't be breathing down your neck if you don't pay the full amount for the next 90 days. That'll give you time to kind of rework your finances and fit this into the budget. The birth expense, 4,041 would be ordered to be paid out of a total of 6,734, and that would be added on at 25 per month. There's $100 or $150 filing fee,
Natalie.
a $59 birth record fee, and an $81 DNA fee. Those would need to be paid within 6 months.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Robin, anything else?
I don't have anything else.
Ma'am, anything else?
No.
Sir, anything else?
No.
All right, we're all set then. Thank you.
Well, actually,
Oh,
what's her responsibility?
What?
well, at this point, she's raising the child that the two of you created together 100% of the time. That comes with usually a lot of expenses, a lot of time. And if you're not helping ease any of that burden, she's got the responsibility to make sure your child's not abused or neglected, has food to eat, a place to sleep, clothes to wear, and all that kind of stuff. That's quite a responsibility. Any other questions?
All right, here we go. All right, so I'm going to give you a little, for those of you who don't know, I'm going to give you a quick news clip on this Hutch situation in Detroit. This is the first I heard about it, and I researched it, so I found a quick news clip. I'm going to do a big video on this one because there's hours of testimony that's from the news, actually. So, but I'm just going to give you something quick. We get a little backstory on it, and then I'm going to show you what happened today. All right, here we go.
In here, it's complicated and this investigation is far from over. But for the first time since this happened back in June, we're learning a theory as to motive here. Sources telling Fox 2 that a local attorney is the mastermind behind it all. Back in the spring, he allegedly wrote up a will for Daniel Hutchinson, putting himself in that will. And that's where the plot, the murder for hire plot, started. This is the trio facing charges in a murder for hire plot to kill well-known jeweler with a celebrity client list, Daniel Hutchinson. We are learning it could go much deeper, and a person of interest, a local attorney, is likely the mastermind behind it all. We cannot name him because he's not been charged yet. Several corroborating sources tell Fox 2, like so many crimes similar to this, it traces back to money. That attorney we're referring to is the person of interest in an investigation that has taken investigators on twists and turns since June 1st. That's when 47-year-old Hutch was shot and killed in his SUV in front of his jewelry store off Greenfield in Oak Park. His wife Marissa in the passenger seat. She was not hurt. It was this man, police say, 44-year-old Roy Larry, that rode up on a bicycle, pulled out a gun, and murdered Hutch midday. Then the investigation broke open, leading to more charges against Roy's relative, 57-year-old Darnell Larry, allegedly in on the plot.
Nice
And
one, Rico.
above them, sources tell us, was 32-year-old Angelo Raptopoulos, also charged. According to court documents, Raptopoulos hit with a solicitation charge. That charge associated with the plot to also kill Marissa Hutchinson. Back to the motive. Several sources close to the investigation tell Fox 2 the local attorney we mentioned earlier is connected to Raptopoulos and had a lot to gain from this couple being dead. We are told the attorney befriended Hutch, then became a business associate who he trusted enough to draft a will that included the attorney. Hutch signed that will, likely without knowing the attorney inserted himself into it. That attorney has a documented history seen in court records in a civil suit against him. It's alleged that the attorney swindled an elderly man from Detroit into deeding over several properties in Detroit and in Washtenaw County, totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars. Then months later, after the quit claims deeds were approved, the elderly man died inside of his Southwest Detroit home. An autopsy reads it was of natural causes, but speculation on his death remains from those close to him. We're told that civil lawsuit was eventually settled between the elderly man's family and the attorney now at the center of the Hutch murder investigation.
Wow.
Back when this tragedy happened, investigators thought only one man was involved, but the layers, they got peeled back and even more people were charged. This investigation, I'm told, has tentacles. So we're talking about this local attorney maybe getting charged here in the next couple of weeks. But there's others, too, that police are looking into. Reporting live in Oak Park, Jessica Dupnack, Fox 2 News.
Yeah, certainly peeling back that onion, as you said, Jessica, and how terrifying to think that someone you trusted enough, an attorney, to do your will, would turn on you like that, if indeed.
Okay, so now we're in Judge Appel. I'm going to take you right here. All the defendants were in court with all of their attorneys at the same time. With the prosecutors, they're arguing back and forth. I don't want to spoil anything. It was great. Here we go.
One 159 Roy Larry, 220236 Angelo Rapadopoulos. Appearance on behalf of the people, please.
Good afternoon. My name is
Okay, so you have the ones that we just saw in the news. There's Roy Larry and Rapadopoulos, and then there's a third defendant that they didn't talk about in the news, and he was also Ramadopoulos for the solicitation charge. So now there's all three of them together.
John Scransky, here for the prosecutor.
Freedom for all against the people. Rick Polanco on behalf of the people.
Okay.
James Thomas on behalf of Marco Vizbicus.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Please, Honorable Court, Richard Taylor on behalf of Mr. Roy Larry.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Michael Bellata on behalf of Angelo Raptopoulos.
Thank you. Today's the date and time set for motion to bind over, argument on behalf of the people, response by the defendants. Are you ready to proceed, Mr. Skrinsky?
Ready, Your Honor. May I just?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Judge, it's
Oh,
been about,
right to video.
about 2 months, over 2 months since we last talked about the murder itself. I just want to go through that really quickly. On June the 1st and the hour about 11:37, this is about an hour before the shooting. We now know that it's Darnell Larry and GR bicycle shop. There's a white rose on Darnell Larry's dashboard. The two of them get out. That's Roy Larry in the foreground, Darnell Larry in the background. Darnell goes into the shop to get the bike. This bike is an electrical bike. It's got 2 gold forks in the front of it. Darnell brings the bike out. He's up in the top right-hand part of the screen, and Roy Larry's now getting out of the car. And as he gets out, he's got the hat on that later shows up at the crime scene. There's a close-up of him right there. That's Darnell or Roy Larry. Darnell brings the bike to the back of the vehicle. They both put the bike into the vehicle, and this is the vehicle that it's a right forward escape. When we do that, Roy gets in, And the pants are falling down, which is an important factor a little bit later on. And then they leave the scene. Darnell said that they went back to his house and they left the house and went north on Greenfield toward Mr. Bisbicus's office. In the meantime, in the upper left-hand corner, we see now this is about 12:21, and we see the Hutchinsons arriving in their Denali at the pawn shop. This is the front parking lot of the pawn shop. They pull up, they get out, and they leave. You can't see there's off the top right-hand side of the screen. The two of them are walking toward the front door. They get out, and there they are getting in. And up in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, the court look, you can see Darnell's vehicle, the white Ford Escape. There's a close-up of it right there, and that was following back. Remember, Darnell said that he met up with the Hutchinsons as he and Roy were coming up northbound on Greenfield. He did a U-turn as Hutchins went by, followed him back to this pawn shop. There goes you can see at the top there, the Ford Escape continues on, makes a U-turn, comes back. There's the Ford Escape right there at the end of the driveway. He goes up to the next street over, which is James, and you can see at the corner of that white building, that's the Ford Escape turning right onto James Street. He continues on, and on the upper left-hand corner of that picture, you can see it's James Street, and you can see the white Ford Escape going eastbound on James Street. And that's exactly what Darnell said he did. The two of them drove down James. They drove to the end, all the way to the right-hand side of the top street. There is James. They drove all the way to the end of that street. They got the bike out, and Roy got on the bike and started to make his way back to the pawn shop. In the meantime, Darnell said he parked on the right-hand side, that's the south side of James Street. In the meantime, the Hutchinsons had finished their business. This was only at 12:30 now, and they were getting back into their vehicle. They pulled back, they pulled up to the driveway, and when they did, you can just barely see Clarence Lewis coming into view. He came up to the passenger side of the vehicle, and he started to talk to Marissa and Dan Hutchinson about what they were going to be doing there, and he wanted to know about some DJ equipment. As he did that, you can see that on the upper right left of the trailer there, you can see up there, you can see Roy coming south in through that alleyway. He's on a bicycle, and he's on that motorized bicycle. As he looks to his right, this is what he sees. He can see the Hutch's vehicle that's in the driveway. You can see Clarence Lewis up at the front window. So instead of going that way, he starts to go left. He starts to head east. He heads east down Miller Street. As he's doing that, now that's important because he's gotten second thought. He's still thinking about. He hesitates. He heads east. In the meantime, Alex Secularis pulls up next to the Hutchinson's vehicle on the left side of the vehicle. It's that white Mercedes. And then just a few seconds later, Roy heads back, starts coming west on Miller. There he is. As he heads west, he's heading toward the vehicles. And as he heads past the vehicle, you can see it's a clear windshield in front. You can see that there are two people inside. Marissa and Dan are inside. This is exhibit number 25. He continues around the corner into the Taco Bell, which is right next door to the pawn shop. When he gets to the Taco Bell, he parks his bike apparently, heads out and is seen in the drive-through driveway by the back camera of the pawn shop. And he's standing there, he's holding a pair of gloves, which comes into play in just a couple of seconds. He also takes down his mask and begins to walk away. There's a close-up of him. That's Roy Larry. Heads back to his bicycle, gets back on the bike, and then heads north on Greenfield, back toward where the cars are. And as he's heading back, he's reaching for it in his right waist, which is where the gun is. Pulls the gun out. He pulls between the vehicles, and when he does that, he begins shooting. He fires several shots, 12 shots into the vehicle at very close range. There he is. He continues. He fires. Hutch has been hit. He's been hit a couple of times in the chest, including once in the heart. His foot comes off the brake pedal. The vehicle drifts ahead, drifts into the lot. And in the meantime, Roy Larry leaves the scene. There's a close-up of him, which comes into play later on. That's taken from the side view of the pawn shop. Very clear cameras. In the meantime, as he's doing that, up in the top of the picture, Alex Secularis backs out of the driveway. You can see Mr. Lewis in front of his van. And Alex follows Roy Larry
Thank you.
down
Del
Miller
Fi.
Street, eastbound on Miller Street. You can see that Mr. Lewis is ducked alongside of the passenger side of his van. Roy goes by.
Can we wear a proper bike equipment? If we're going to commit murder, can you please wear a bike helmet? Thank you, Delphi, for the dono. Should have been wearing a helmet. Gloves, gun, helmet. Essential. I can't. I see you guys commenting. It's 2023. There are cameras everywhere. There's probably a camera attached to that guy's bike. Like, are you kidding me? You're not getting away with this.
Again, you can see the drooping pants, which in a minute is
Eddie
an important
Murphy.
part. As he drives down the sidewalk, he goes further up, and right out where that car is parked, up in the top part of the screen there, you can see that Roy gets up on the sidewalk and continues on. And as he's doing that, Alex is coming after him in the Mercedes, and Alex goes up the sidewalk. You can see that up at the top in the same place. Now
you know what, Sean? If he was carrying, I don't even know. He probably wouldn't even have had time to pull that out. That guy just ran right up on him. He had no shot.
He pursued Mr. Larry, and he pursued him up to the apartment building where Mr. Price was staying, John Price. John Price said he looked out the window and he saw the bicyclists go by. He saw the Mercedes go by. He said that he saw the bicyclists turn into the street and fall over. He said that the bicyclists got up and started running across the street. That would be northbound. And as he was running away, Mr. Price said his pants are coming down, and he's trying to hold his pants up. He runs in between a couple of apartment buildings, and Mr. Secularis continues to chase him in his car. As that's happening, if you look down to the upper left of the picture, you can see that Darnell Larry, as he said he did after he heard the shots, he turned around, he came out, and there's a close-up. You can see Darnell's Larry vehicle going by. He's headed now westbound on James Street, headed back to Greenfield. He makes it up to Greenfield, and unfortunately you can't see. He's turning at the top right corner of the picture. You can't see that. There it is. You can see right next to the white building. He turns out onto Greenfield, as he said he did. He turned right, and he said that he headed toward the turnaround. There he goes, heading toward the turnaround. He got into the turnaround, and he said there was a police car coming by. That's a shot from the police car. That's the first responding officer who's already been notified. 911 has already been called. And there's Darnell Larry's car right at the turnaround there on the left with the white rose in the middle of the dashboard. There it is. Class close-up on it, exhibit number 51. As the police officer goes by, and Mr. Larry, you can see up at the right edge of the picture up by that white building. He then turns left from the turnaround to head south on Greenfield to go back to Detroit. There he is, even clearer. You can see that on the right side of the screen. And he continues on. He's out of those three cars, he's the middle car going southbound on Greenfield. And he continues on. There he is at the front of all the cars heading back to Detroit. So he heads back to Detroit. We know that as Mr. Larry's as Mr. Larry is running, he apparently hurt his ankle, and then he is eventually captured outside of an apartment building on James Street by Detective Batora and other detectives who have made the scene. Detective Batora says that as they're approaching him, he tries to get up to go away, but he can't move because of the fact that he's broken his ankle. Now, Detective Batora, I just want to nail down the idea of identity. Detective Batora said he arrested Mr. Larry. He pointed Mr. Larry out in the courtroom. And he said that Mr. Larry, the picture of Mr. Larry from the video of the pawn shop was sent to him by Detective Green about an hour later. And he identified that picture, exhibit number 36. That's the picture that he was sent, and he said that that's Mr. Larry. That's the person that he arrested outside of the apartment building on James Street. That's the person that had the broken ankle. He was taken to Beaumont to have his injury treated. Later on, when Darnell Larry testified, we showed him this exact same picture, and he said, "That's my cousin Roy." So that's Mr. Roy Larry. Those are the clothes that Roy Larry was wearing when he was arrested. Those are the same clothes that you see the shooter wearing, same clothes. And that's what Detective Batora said. Those were the clothes that he was wearing. Later on, Mr. Price said that after he saw the bike fall over and Mr. Larry run across the street, Mr. Secularis chased after him. Mr. Price said he went out into the street, he picked up that bicycle, that one, took it around to the back of his apartment building and kept it there. Later on, when the police arrived, Mr. Price went up to one of the officers, Lieutenant Kretschmer, who came in, and she testified. She said that Mr. Price approached her and said, "Are you looking for a bike?" And then he led her back to where the bike was behind his apartment building on Miller Street. And as she followed him to pick up the bike, that's the same bike. You can see the two gold forks. That's Mr. Larry getting the bike out of the bike shop. That's the same bike. And as she, and that's Mr. Larry in the Beaumont Hospital. Or that's when he was arrested. Detective Vittori said, "That's the man I arrested outside that apartment building." We also know that he was holding those gloves, and that when Lieutenant Kretschmer was going to retrieve the bicycle, she saw the gloves in the street. This was the area where the bike had fallen over. Those gloves were collected. There was DNA done on them, and the DNA revealed that there was a mixture of 3 DNAs in those gloves. And the report stated that it was 62 trillion times, more likely that it was a mixture, including Roy Larry and 2 other unknown people, than if it was both of those people. So the fourth and third element is that he intends to kill. So he tried to injure, he had the ability to injure, and he had February the 14th, the bottom date there, that he revealed something in court that he said he'd never revealed before, that he actually went to the jewelry store on February the 14th to see them, and he was told that they were not there. So he called them 3 times, which the FBI was able to corroborate through the records of Darnell's phone, and then he said he went to see him. So those things are corroborated. So he says he does that. He says that during the course of this whole thing, that Angelo took him to the...
Okay. Record should reflect.
Okay, so this is where I jumped because I was a little behind and she kept taking breaks. I didn't know if she's going to cut the stream, so I took a preemptive edit and a cut to things when they took short breaks and monotonous things, and then I highlighted the important. So if you see jumping, there's really nothing you missed in the case. They're kind of just repeating. So what they did was they repeated the same thing for each defendant. So it was the same argument by the prosecutor for each defendant, except with a different charge. So when I saw that, I jumped and I took an opportunity to catch up. So all the important things we're catching.
That we're back on the record.
There we go.
And you may proceed, Mr. Spencer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Both Marco and Angelo, after Jesus, continued to urge Darnell Larry to make sure that Marissa is also killed. They say that you can't make it to court on September 6th. At some point, we know that Mr. Bisbicus leaves to Greece, but Darnell Larry is still talking to Angelo, and Angelo is still putting pressure on Darnell to make sure that Marissa is dead before Marco makes it back from Greece. And we know that Darnell finally tells him, "I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it." And Angelo says, "Then get somebody that will." And we know that on August the 16th of 2022, Angelo brings over some money. He brings over, I think he said that Darnell said it was like either $13,000 or $15,000. And he said, "Take a picture of it," which Darnell does.
Idiot.
And he said, "Show that, circulate that, show that to people, tell them that this is what they're going to get. You can pay them if they kill Marissa." This is on August the 6th. We also know that there are more meetings after that between Angelo and Darnell where, again, Angelo is urging Darnell to either get somebody or to do it himself. And those go right up to the point where Darnell is arrested on August the 23rd. So this stretches between January of 22nd, when Angelo first approached Darnell with the idea of killing both people, until August of 22, when Angelo said, you got to finish the job, you got to kill Marissa. Now, both Mr. Raptopoulos and Mr. Bisbicus are charged with first-degree murder, felony firearm as well. And those theories are based on aiding and abetting. With aiding and abetting, you have to have that the act of murder was committed, that before or during, the defendant did something to assist in the commission, before the murder or during the murder. And then at the time of the assistance, the defendant had to intend to help commit the first-degree murder. So basically, the same facts that support the conspiracy support the aiding and abetting. Every time that we see that Angelo was with Angelo was with Darnell on the 15th, when Darnell said he was instructed to murder the Hutchinsons. Angelo was out there watching. He was instructed to kill him on the 19th again. Angelo was out there watching. Angelo actually took him to the Comedy Castle on April the 1st and told him to shoot him. This is a constant encouragement, constant counseling to kill these people. And at the time, this is before the homicide, but it's a constant thing. And it doesn't stop at the homicide. It continues after the homicide. The fact that he doesn't do it on the actual day of the murder is irrelevant. Every time he gives assistance, every time he gives encouragement, every time he gives counsel to them, he even told Darnell at one point, you go sit on that bus stop on Woodward, they come home late at night after a Pistons game, you see them go by, then you go and kill them. When you do that, you run from 9 Mile to where they are down to 7 Mile, and I'll be waiting at my uncle's house down there to pick you up and take you away. And Darnell says, that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous plan. I'm not doing that. But Angelo is telling him, he's counseling, he's telling him how to do it. And every time he tells him how to do it, he tells him, use the gun him down. At the Comedy Castle, and Marco the same thing. He tells him, hit him, go over and shoot him. So this aiding and abetting, it doesn't include the actual day of the homicide, but it includes all the time leading up to it and all the time after, which shows that Angelo intended to assist Darnell Larry, counsel him, procure him to commit first-degree murder, to help Darnell Larry commit first-degree murder. On aiding and abetting, that is first-degree murder. We know that Angelo is also counseling him to carry or use a firearm during the course of this. Gun him down at the Comedy Cast, gun him down there, run to 7 Mile. He's always aiding and abetting in the felony firearm too. That's People Against Moore 470 56. If you counsel somebody to carry,
to find safety after the homicide is concerned, it makes no sense. It's the same no sense that it makes to commit a homicide by picking up a bicycle at a bike shop, leaving the receipt on it, putting a flashing light on.
Okay, so now the defense attorney for defendant number 1, the chubby guy, I don't know his name, he is speaking about how stupid the murder plot is. So now you're going to hear from each defense attorney. Here we go.
And expecting to escape on a bicycle after shooting somebody where there's cars around. It makes no sense. They want to make Marco a part of the conspiracy. They want to make him the mastermind. Nobody with any common sense would do that. Maybe somebody who had a motive because we know that he was in trouble for money, who wanted to rob Hutch because Hutch was known to have money. He can't pretend that he doesn't know who Hutch is because he says he now he says that he went over to Hutch's store, which we never heard before. In addition to the 3 phone calls, he knows who Hutch is. He knows Hutch has money, and this is a way for him to get it. Now, botched robbery, before we planned, doesn't sound like something a lawyer would set up, and the timing doesn't jive. If there was a meeting with Hutch that was supposed to take place at Bisbicus's All Law, we know that didn't occur. He never went. You can see from the cast report, he never went north of 10 Mile Road. When he is coming to the scene of the homicide, he's on Greenfield, and he's traveling north, but the only area that you see him milling around is Hutch's store, not at Bisbicus's law office, but Hutch's store. He's pinging on that. Okay. The timing of it, if it was supposed to be Hutch at the law offices at 11 o'clock, he's supposed to be sitting there waiting. He didn't get to the bike store until 11:45, or thereabouts. It had nothing to do with the law office. It had nothing to do with Marco Bisbicus. It had only to do with him and his need for money. And the assassination was meant to take a person who carries money regularly and who's known to be very successful, and to do the robbery. The fact that Darnell Larry, that Roy Larry didn't take any money, or that anybody didn't take any money to leave Mr. Roy Larry out of it, things go awry. Things as planned don't occur the way that they're supposed to occur. And it's understandable that the grab of the money didn't occur. But it doesn't take away from the fact that it was a motive for Darnell. And so the examination of the whole matter, there is evidence to believe that each of the elements of the offenses occurred, consciously entertain a reasonable belief that a conspiracy took place. I think that there is ample reason for you to question the credibility of Darnell Larry. And as a result, I'm asking you not to bind over on any of the 3 charges.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I may. I'm going to adopt, and I hope the court will allow me to adopt a lot of the arguments as it relates to the credibility of Mr. Daniel Larry that my co-counsel Brother Thomas has put on the record, because I think for me to reiterate a lot of that would just be duplicative on the record, and I don't want to belabor the record anymore, because I believe that as it relates to this matter, the things that I know these sometimes apply to trial instructions and jury instructions when we talk about reason, logic, and common sense, and I know this court has more reason and logic and common sense than probably all of us sitting here. But when it comes to Mr. Darnell Larry's testimony, and to believe that Mr. Roy Larry would, within a 2-day period, allow himself, as Mr. Darnell Larry indicated, get into something that he shouldn't have gotten into, it just seems somewhat preposterous at this time. Particularly when you look at the physical evidence that was taken from the scene on that particular day as relates to Mr. Roy Larry. We know that Mr. Roy Larry was medically assisted somewhere near the scene where Mr. Hutchinson passed away. We know that he had a shattered ankle, but we don't know by any testimony that was prospered over the last 2 or 3 days during the course of the examination how that injury occurred. There has been no testimony from anyone that he was running and broke his ankle. That although we saw a vehicle that we know was driven by Mr. Alex Sacalaris leave the scene where the shooting took place and pursue a person on a bicycle, we don't know whether or not there was no testimony as to whether or not that bike came into contact with Mr. Roy Larry at all. And the only other person, again, and not to belabor the point as relates to Mr. Darnell Larry's testimony, that has looked at a photo or looked at the exhibits that were placed into the record and said that is Mr. Roy Larry, was Darnell Larry. And again, questioning his credibility. And I find it hard to believe, Judge, that again, dealing with the physical evidence at the scene, we know that the officers did not conduct any form of GSR testing or anything of that nature on that day to determine whether or not Mr. Roy Larry had just discharged the weapon. We know that there were at least 3 different individuals.
Why are we fighting that he didn't shoot a gun? I'm no big time lawyer. There's no lawyer react channel here, but didn't I just see him pew pew? Do you need GSR? I mean, I don't know.
DNA that was on the bicycle that was retrieved from the scene, the motorbike that was retrieved from the scene on the street, I believe it was Miller Street, not James Street, that the gentleman pointed out. We also know, and as noted by Mr. Skrinsky, that the gloves that were also found on the scene, although those gloves contained a sampling of DNA from Mr. Roy Larry,
Sean.
they also contained the DNA of other individuals as well. And even to the extent that there was looked like a mask that we've all commonly worn during the course of this COVID period that was seen around the person's neck on the bike. That mask, I don't believe, was put in evidence, nor was it mentioned in any way, shape, or form of DNA being taken from that
vehicle used in the murder. Well, he has no problem putting that on my claim. That's a very serious lie to be telling over and over again.
So now I have this on 1.25, and apparently this lawyer has a squeaky voice because it was even squeakier at 1.25.
But more serious than that, Judge, is who provided the murder weapon. I almost fell out of my chair during that hearing because that's the first time I ever heard Darnell Larry say, and believe me, I've listened to a lot of hours of just him talking, he's never said he was responsible for the gun. Never. He said that gun was provided to him by Angelo, and it may have been Marco's gun, he doesn't know, but it wasn't his gun that shot and killed Mr. Hutchinson. It was either Angelo's or Marco's. The very first time, and I'd love to learn if there was a prior statement by him, but I don't think there is. The very first time that Darnell Larry ever says, yeah, that was my gun, that was my .40 caliber, was in this courtroom. And I find that alone should cause this court enough concern to not find this case over, because for there to be probable cause, and I think everybody will agree with this in the courtroom, the court could not find probable cause based on cell site information, or based on phone calls, or based on the motive that was laid out by the people. That alone does not provide probable cause. You need that person to say, yeah, we were on Whitworth, but we really were going to Hutch's house, and we really were going there to case it out, and there really was a conspiracy. to kill Hutch. And all that's coming from Darnell, that unreliable narrator who lies when it suits him. And it's kind of a conflict of and convergence of the perfect storm in this sense, because you have someone like this unreliable narrator, then you have officers and agents who are handling, I believe it was their second murder case, where they told Darnell Larry on the very first day what they wanted him to say. And I played those clips when I cross-examined Detective Green as well as Darnell. In those clips that I played, Exhibit RB, I believe, Lieutenant Benson said, "Remember I told you, this is bigger than just you and Roy. This is bigger than you and Roy. I'm just letting you know this is bigger than just you and Roy." That was on the first interview, when Darnell was claiming he had no knowledge. Then later in the first interview, FBI Special Agent Weeks said, quote, "We all know this wasn't you and Roy's idea. We know that there's people that set this up." And finally, at the end of that first interview, he was told that I think this was Lieutenant Benson, that they'll come back and talk to him if he's prepared to tell them the story. And he says, "What story?" And Lieutenant Benson said, "The story I just laid out for you." They told Darnell Larry what they wanted him to say, and Darnell Larry happily filled that in, but he kept changing his story. And to sit here and say, we all know that Daniel Hutchinson was murdered on June 1st, 2022, so Marco Vizquicas could take over his business, that's a theory. That's all it is. It is equally likely and really simpler, Occam's razor. What's the simplest reason that these two fellows would want to attack a very wealthy man holding $69,000 in cash? They wanted the cash. How do we know this wasn't a robbery? Because they didn't complete it? Is it not reasonable and logical that somebody could panic and decide not to follow the car, especially as it drives off? If you watch the shooting, just shots start, the car starts driving away. And it's very possible that Roy Larry decided that he wasn't going to chase the car. There were other people in cars around. Maybe he just panicked. Maybe he just biked away. That's reasonable. Certainly a jury couldn't convict, because that would be a reasonable possibility. And I think it's very likely that one or more jurors will simply disbelieve Darnell Larry because of his continuing lies, even months after he's decided supposedly to tell the truth and cooperate. If I were a prosecutor, I'd have a hard time putting that person on the stand and saying, "This is my whole case." And that's really what they're doing here. Let's make no mistake. The fancy maps and stuff, that's really cool, but you need to have somebody to tell the story. That person telling the stories are unreliable narrator, much as you would see in a novel by Gillian Flynn. I think the court has ample reason to, even though this is an extremely serious case, to discard the testimony of a witness who lied about who supplied the gun, lied about who supplied the vehicle used in the murder, admitted to lying about that, and is getting a deal. Instead of life without parole, he's getting 6 years, potentially. I mean,
unbelievable.
There's just not enough, Your Honor. And one thing I want you to think about, and if you have the exhibits, which I think you do, if you would listen to Exhibit RO, it's Exhibit RO, and that's on August 26th, the second time that Darnell is interviewed in custody. He and his wife are done talking, and they're talking in whispered tones because they're trying to have a private conversation, it appears. And you might have to use headphones to really hear it clearly, but I listened to it. You listen to RO, Darnell tells his wife this, quote, "I don't have what they want me to give them." He didn't have this story. He made up this story. He did it because he knew that that's what they wanted to hear, and he continued to lie about it. And what did my client, even if you credit his testimony, which I think there's a very, very strong reason not to, what did my client even do? He had no role.
So what he's saying is his argument is his client, it's a made-up story, and the murderer is just saying this because he's going to get a sweet deal if he says he was hired by Angelo.
On the day of the murder, prior to the murder, Darnell didn't call him. He allegedly talked to Marco. According to Darnell, my client had no idea that there was going to be an electric bike used or what the actual plan was.
Sure.
And he even said that it's possible that my client didn't even know that the murder was going to occur that day, on June 1st. And there's been no evidence introduced by the prosecution that Mr. Raptopoulos, my client, was involved on the day of the murder, prior to the murder, or had any knowledge of the murder happening that day. I asked the court to do what Mr. Thomas suggested, which is to look at the credibility and decide whether or not there's even probable cause based on that testimony. And I submit to you that there is not. And that Mr.
is the jewelry store. And as Marissa said, the jewelry store took in $21 million in 2020 and 2021. And then they turned around and they gave that money to Marco on his suggestion. Can I have that slide? They supplied that money to Marco in bags. And in after the money had been bundled up by Marissa. This is the photograph. This is exhibit number 79. And she looked at that and she said, there's about $1 million on that desk, and that those things are banded in the way that I did it. That's similar to the way I did it. So there you go, right there. We know that that's true. Now we also know that Marco had talked to donating $2.1 million for this movie. And we know from the email that
So are we going beyond argument now? He's now sandbagging me with information that
they brought up this motive. They brought up the motive. He brought it up.
These are exhibits that he did not show you during his.
Well, I'm making response to his.
So now another argument is that they had this side thing with movies, and if he cut Hutch out, he would be the lone partner and benefit from it with Hutch and Marissa out of the picture. That Marco. So now that's chubby guy's Marco. There we go.
Talk about the motive. I didn't bring that up. He did. And the fact that I have these prepared, that means no difference. He brought this up. I get to rebut what he said.
You can continue.
Thank you. So Marissa asked Marco to prepare some kind of a receipt for that $2 million. And she said that Marco came up with this agreement. And what it says right there is that the general partner and the partnership acknowledge that the limited partner, and those two people are defined earlier in the agreement. The general partner is Marco, the limited partner is Marissa, that the limited partner has recently contributed $2.1 million to the capital of the partnership. So that's an admission that he got that $2.1 million. And we also know from the email that was admitted from Mr. DiMartini, who's a production lawyer for the film Skeletons in the Closet, that Marco was the only person that contributed, and that all he contributed was $900,000. That leaves $1.2 million in cash that Marco acknowledged that Marissa gave him, which was not invested. This is all that was invested, $900,000. So that's $1.2 million. Marissa also said that she gave Marco an additional $300,000. So that's $1.5 million. That's 1.5 million reasons why Mr. Bisbicus might want to see Dan and Marissa dead. He gets that money free and clear without them being alive. And as I say on this this trust agreement, all this money that Marissa said, and she said that they gave him millions of dollars in cash because during the pandemic, their business tripled. They took in about $7 million in 2019. She testified they took in about $20 million in 2020 and another $20 million in 21. And she said that they were not reporting all of that. They were not reporting all that to the IRS. They were retaining some of that. They had it in the safe. Marco suggests, I'll take it for you. I can put it in IOLTA accounts. She also said that he took it to a place called Fort Knox. We don't know where that is. And all that money went there. So the money is one great reason why Marco would want this done. It's a great motive. And then the trust agreement, as I said, which was signed on the 14th, the night before they show up at the Hutchinson house, with Darnell having the instructions to gun down the Hutchinsons when they come back. That's within hours after having signed this property, making Marco the trustee of all this cash in the event of the death of Dan and Marissa. They're at this house. Now, it says on page 12.5, except to the extent required by law, our trustee is not required to file accountings in any jurisdiction. He's not required to file accountings. After the death of the first of us to die, our trustee must provide an annual accounting to the income beneficiaries of any trust created under this trust unless waived by the income beneficiary. The only beneficiary is a 16-year-old girl. And not only that, but nobody knows that all this money is coming from the jewelry store because the only people that knew about it were Hutch and Marissa and Marco. He took the money. He took the money from them. On page 12.6 of the trust agreement, it says our trustee is not required to furnish any information regarding our trust to anyone other than the beneficiary, who is Martha, 16-year-old girl. Our trustee may exclude any information our trustee determines is not directly applicable to the beneficiary receiving the information. So he can decide what he wants to tell him. And like I said, the only thing that nobody knows about the cash that's being transferred. That's what Marissa said, that they were transferring to Marco, so it was unreported cash. and they spent some of it, but she said that they gave him millions of dollars. On page 13.1, it says, our trustee may exercise the powers granted by this trust without prior approval from any court, including those powers set forth under the laws of the state of Michigan or any other jurisdiction whose law applies to this trust. You needn't talk to a court in order to exercise any kind of control over the assets, which include the jewelry store. And then on 13.2, it says, if the trust owns an interest in business, in a business entity, like the jewelry store, our trustee may exercise the powers and authority provided for in this section, in addition to all other powers granted to our trustee in this trust. And this section goes on to set out that the trustee may act as a director, general or limited partner, associate or officer of the business. Our trustee may exercise all the powers of management of the business. Our trustee may reduce, expand, limit, or otherwise adjust the operation or policy of the business. Our trustee may subject the trust principal and income to the risks of the business for any term or period as our trustee determines. Our trustee may borrow money from the business, may secure the loan or loans by a pledge or mortgage of any part of the trust.
Shoot them as they exited,
Okay, so now I'm going to go to
indicating
Judge
that the
Appel's
bounce into the Hutchinson's vehicle.
Any powers
During review of the security video, showed a man on an electric bike pulling up to the building and firing multiple shots in the Hutchinson's vehicle. The security video, Exhibit 4, and the still videos taken from the security video show that there were 2 eyewitnesses present at the time of the shooting, and that one of the eyewitnesses, later identified as Alice Sakalaris, had pulled into the driveway of the building prior to the shooting, and after the shooting could be seen backing up his car and could be seen pursuing the shooter on the bike. According to Detective Green, the bike seen in the video being ridden by the shooter was picked up off the street by John Price, who testified that he had found it in the middle of the street and ultimately turned it over to the police. Shortly after the shooting, a black male with a broken ankle was found 1 block north of where the shooting had occurred. The individual indicated that he had been hit by a car. The man taken into custody was wearing a gray shirt, blue jeans, black shoes. He was identified as Roy Larry, the same person seen in the video, wearing the same clothes as the person in police custody, who on the video could be seen firing multiple shots into the Hutchinson's vehicle as he rode past on his bike. Based on a sticker found on the recovered bike, the police proceeded to the GNR bike shop in Detroit. The police were provided with a downloaded video taken on June 1st prior to the shooting. Starting at Exhibit 67, the video from the outside of the GNR bike shop shows a white Ford Escape that was ultimately determined to belong to Larry Darnell. Darnell Larry, I apologize. On the dashboard was a white Rose. The driver of the car was identified as Darnell Larry, and the occupant of the car was identified as Roy Larry. Exhibits 69 through 74 are the still photos taken from the GNR bike shop security and shows Roy Larry seated in the passenger seat of the car outside of the bike shop, and he's wearing a gray t-shirt, jeans, and black shoes with a silver object on the toes of the shoes. The pictures show Darnell Larry inside the bike shop, along with a picture of the bike that was later found at the scene. Darnell exits the bike shop, and Roy Larry can be seen standing on the sidewalk outside the bike shop on the passenger side of the Ford Escape, wearing the same clothes he was wearing when he was found by the police after the shooting. Exhibits 9 through 15 show the white Ford Escape traveling southbound on Greenfield at 12:22, and then southbound on Greenfield, traveling towards the pawn shop and then turning east onto James Street. At about 12:30, exhibits 17 through 25 show the Hutchinsons exiting the building. At about the same time, a different camera shows Roy Larry is on a bicycle eastbound on Miller Street from the alley, and in Exhibit 25, Roy Larry is on a bike heading westbound right before Greenfield. In Exhibits 31 through 36, at about 12:35, Roy Larry is traveling on a bike towards the pawn shop and can be seen reaching into his waistband, then holding a gun. Exhibit 36 is a close-up of the gun in his hand, and in this exhibit, the slide is to the rear, indicating that the magazine is empty. After the shooting, Exhibit 44 shows the Ford Escape, previously identified as belonging to Darnell Larry, traveling westbound on James towards Greenfield. In her testimony, Marissa Hutchinson describes the events that occurred during the course of the day prior to her husband being shot and what she witnessed the day of the shooting at the property owned by her and her husband located on Greenfield, again in the city of Oak Park. On the morning of June 1st, she and her husband had a meeting with their attorney, Marco Bispicas, at his office located on Greenfield near 13 Mile in the city of Southfield. Mr. and Mrs. Hutchinson had been clients of Mr. Bispicas for approximately 5 years prior to this incident. Their billing arrangement was very informal, and Mr. Bispicas was generally paid in cash. According to Marissa, the 2019 revenues from the jewelry business that she and her husband owned were approximately $7 million. But in 2019 and 20, business increased exponentially, and over the course of those 2 years, the business brought in about $40 million in revenue. Much of the revenue for those 2 years was cash. Because of the nature of their clientele, many of the cash transactions received could not be reported, and the Hutchinsons began depositing large amounts of cash in Marco Bispicka's attorney-client trust account. Mr. Bispickas advised the Hutchinsons that because of the attorney-client privilege, the source of the checks he wrote on their behalf out of his trust.
So Marco is that unnamed attorney that we saw in the news, in the news reel I showed before. That's Marco. So that's the one that they couldn't name yet, because at the time they had that newscast, he was not named. So it's Marco.
Account could not be traced. Items purchased with funds the Hutchinsons deposited in defendant Bispicka's trust account included the building on Greenfield where this murder occurred. Exhibit 79 was identified by Marissa Hutchinson as a picture taken of rubber band bundles of cash. The picture was taken in Marco Bispicka's office, and the bundles on the desk, based on her experience, each contained about $100,000. She testified that it appeared to be about $1 million worth of bundles. Darnell Larry testified that he started working for Bispickas and in 2016. He described himself as 100% loyal because he had helped him out after he got out of prison for a 1992 murder. During the course of his employment with Bispickas, he met Angelo Rapadopoulos and eventually began working for the marijuana grow operation located in Grass Lake, Michigan, which was owned and operated by Rapadopoulos and Bispickas. Exhibit 88 and 89 show pictures of Marco Bispickas and Angelo Rapadopoulos inside the marijuana grow operation. Exhibit 90 and 93 are Facebook posts of Marco Bispickas and Darnell, including pictures of Marco Bispickas in Las Vegas attending Darnell Larry's wedding. Darnell Larry testified that in January of 2022, he was told by Angelo Rapadopoulos that Bispickas was on a federal indictment list, and some of the people Marco trusted the most in the world were going to testify against him. Rapadopoulos also told Darnell that the people from New York had paid him $200,000 to kill the Hutchinsons to stop them from testifying against Bispickas, and he advised Rapadopoulos advised Darnell that he would pay him $50,000 to help commit the to take care of killing the Hutchinsons. Darnell Larry testified that he was contacted by Marco Bispickas on April 1st to set up the shooting of Marissa and Daniel. Darnell was advised by Bispickas that the Hutchinsons would be at the Mark Ridley Comedy Castle and that Darnell could shoot them as they exited. Cell towers confirmed that Darnell Larry and Angelo Rapadopoulos were in the area of Mark Ridley Comedy Castle between 9:52 and 10:04 on April 1st. According to Darnell, he did not think shooting someone across the street from the police department was a good idea, and the shooting did not take place. Marissa Hutchinson testified that, in fact, on the evening of April 1st, 2022, her husband and a third party attended the comedy show at Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle.
Thanks, Kim.
On April 14th, the Hutchinsons executed a new estate plan that had been drafted by Marco Bispickas. At the time the trust was executed, Marissa testified that she did not fully understand the terms and conditions of the trust, but she came to understand that if anything ever happened to Daniel and her, that Marco would become the trustee of their estate. Darnell went on to testify about the various plans that were put together by Bispickas and Rapadopoulos that did not succeed for various reasons. Darnell also described various attempts on his part to remove himself from the murder plot, including phone calls that were confirmed that he had made to the Hutchinsons, which he testified he was doing in an attempt to warn them. Phone records confirmed that on April 15th at 1 a.m. in the morning, Darnell was contacted by Marco Bispickas to proceed with the plan to kill the Hutchinsons. Cell tower records confirmed that Darnell, Angelo Rapadopoulos, and Marco Rapadopoulos were all in the area of the Hutchinsons' home. According to the testimony of Marissa, due to a car accident downtown, Marco missed closing that was supposed to take place on April 15th. Phone records do not confirm that he was, in fact, downtown Detroit. The closing of the pawn shop did not take place on April 15th, but finally took place on April 19th, that Mr. Rapadopoulos paid to Darnell Larry with the explanation of the people in New York who were providing or intent. And accordingly, I find probable cause for count 1 for the reasons stated previously on the assist on the aiding and abetting. I find probable cause for count 2, possession of a firearm and the commission of a felony. And finally, on count 3, not only in advance were there preparations and discussions, not only were there phone records of conversations that took place. There is evidence after the fact that the conspiracy to murder Marissa Hutchinson, as well as the actions taken by hiring attorneys to represent
Thanks, Chris.
Roy Larry. I find that a conspiracy to commit murder took place between March 2022 and August of 22, and I find probable cause that Marcus Pispicus most likely committed the offense. All these matters are bound over. Denial of bond continued. Thank you.
Judge Appel taking care of business. All right. Before I go, I'm gonna. I think we actually have night court. This was live. This was live. It just ended a couple minutes ago. You know I love Albany, Georgia. This is real live night court. I'm just gonna let it speak for itself.
By law, to make sure all defendants, including him, understand the rights, understand the options, things of that nature. Mr. Allen Sham, when you read the document that I'm going over, you understand all of it? Yes. Did you have an opportunity to go over with your son? Yes. And you're satisfied based upon you going over with the son, the son understands what he's doing? That's correct.
What's going on? Where are they? This is like the lunchroom in my school. Oh my
22 years of age?
Yes, sir.
You completed high school?
kidding me?
Yes, sir.
Where do you work?
Nowhere.
Have you ever worked anywhere?
Yes, sir.
Where?
Where do you work? Nowhere. Where do you work? Nowhere. Don't work anywhere.
You want me to name all of them, or?
At 22 years old, you couldn't have worked that many places.
Yeah, I did, but I was just working at Burger King though.
What was the last place?
Burger King
How long
on
did you work
North
at Burger King?
North Sled.
How long did you work there?
Probably like a month, cause I got a baby. So.
And where did you work before that?
Oh, Integral.
How long
At
did you work?
She just told the judge she had a baby. What gave it away? And who's that guy in the back? What? This Albany? I don't think Albany's a real court. I just think it's a big prank on us.
Warehouse.
It's a troll court.
How long did you work there?
Probably like a week because I was pregnant and I couldn't do it.
You had a job longer than 6 months?
Yes,
Where?
I worked at McDonald's. When I was in school, I worked there longer than 6 months.
Thank you, Brian.
You have your own place?
Yes, sir.
What year did you graduate from college? I mean, from high school?
2019.
You have any other children?
No, sir.
This is in Zoom. This is real
You're
court.
indicted on the charge of improper backing with an accident. You sentenced up to 12 months in jail and $1,000 fine.
Yes, sir.
You mentally disabled or under the influence of alcohol, drugs, and medication.
No, sir.
You have the right to a trial by jury, presumption of innocence, the right to confront and speak of it, and the right to remain silent and not incriminate yourself.
Yes, sir. That's my oldest sister.
Next. Where's Bull? Oh,
So
here
you're
we
38,
go.
You have 21 years of age? Yes, sir. Are you employed? I'm currently a civil veteran. You don't work anywhere? Yes, sir. Are you disabled? Yes, sir. Did you retire? Say again? Did you retire? You said you're a veteran? A veteran. Did you retire from the service or you just? You understand that you sentenced up to 12 months in jail and $1,000 fine on each charge? Yes, sir. Are you mentally disabled or under the influence of alcohol or drugs in that case? No, sir. You have the right to a trial by jury, presumption of innocence, the right to front and to the witnesses, and the right to remain silent and not incriminate yourself. You understand those rights? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Smoochie.
You recall whether or not the
Wait.
license was expired?
Whose
March
birthday?
13, 2020? Georgia driver's license.
Whoa. See?
Yeah, more than one state driver's license? Yes, sir. How many state licenses you have?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Monica. Happy birthday, dear you. She gets more than a message. She gets me serenading.
I had a California state driver's
She's a sneak. I'm mad at her now.
The family was signed. Here, they have a California license, the Georgia license. Oh, I had my Georgia driver's license.
Unemployment court.
That's it.
This is the worst court ever. Ready? Next. Oh,
I moved to Alabama just there for my court date.
what?
Are you working in Alabama? No, just moved. Stay in the process. Are you working in Albany? Yeah.
No. Whoa. Nobody works.
2017 is the last time I left. You understand that you sentenced for 12 months in jail and $1,000 each charge? Yes, sir.
Wait. Do we see pink? Wait. Oh my God. All right, guys. It's been real. Oh, Wexler with the dono. Thank you so much, Wexler. Much appreciated, brother. Thank you so much. Monica, you're in trouble tomorrow during the live. You're in trouble. Guys, it's been real. We got a vacation coming. Just want to wish everybody safe and happy holiday. I will be live anyway. I'm bringing the laptop down the shore. I'll go through withdrawals without you guys. So I need you to pay attention. I'll be live. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Sean, for the dono. Thank you, everybody, for the dono. Make sure you have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow. Happy birthday, Monica. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. It's time to watch Kitsch. She's live in a few.